guys, welcome back to my miniature things. My name is Saeed. A friend of mine hired me to make a restaurant for her dolls, but not just any restaurant, you guys, a vegan restaurant because her dolls don't eat meat. Her name is Denise, and I met her at a doll show a few months ago, and we quickly became friends. I will put her Instagram handle right here on the screen just in case you guys want to check her out because she's also a fellow doll content creator. Now, before we start, she did give me a list of things that we do have to try to achieve throughout this project, and I wrote it down so I don't forget, and I have it right here. So number one, it has to measure 37 inches wide by 22 inches deep by 16 inches tall because this is going to go into a shelf, so it has to fit the measurements of the shelf. Number two, she did see my bakery video and she was obsessed with the display cases in that video. So we have to make sure that we make her some really cute display cases, display cases to put her little vegan miniature treats in there. Number three, she really wants an industrial refrigerator that she can use to store her mini vegan drinks. And number four, she really wants an indoor-outdoor feel. I'm not really sure how we're going to achieve that, but I'm pretty sure we can figure it out. Other than those specifics, I pretty much have free range to do whatever I want. Well, she did say to dial it back on the gold molding a little bit. Which is fine, I guess I can work with that. So if you want to see how to build a mini vegan restaurant for your dolls, just keep watching. Welcome to the Big Apple. I decided to go with this background because our friend is from the Big Apple. Well, actually, she's from Trinidad and Tobago, believe it or not. She grew up in the Big Apple. But I've lived in LA for over a decade now, you guys, and I've never met someone from Trinidad and Tobago. So this is just a match made in heaven. Because as most of you guys know, I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. Hello. We are going to be doing a custom background for her once we put in the windows in our vegan restaurant. So this one is literally just for us to have something to film against. But as usual, let's start with our floors. And remember, the room has to measure 37 inches by 22 inches. So I joined two pieces of foam board with some duct tape, giving me a piece that measures 37 inches going this way and 22 inches going this way. Let's now cover the entire thing in this herringbone printable that I printed off of the computer. Like this. So now that we have our floors down, let's start working on the walls. Now remember, the walls have to be 16 inches tall, which is a lot shorter than I usually do my walls. So again, I joined two pieces of foam board with some duct tape and I cut it down to size. It measures 37 inches going this way and 16 inches going this way. And I'm going to cover the entire thing in this cream contact paper that I found on Amazon just so that we're not looking at this stark white foam board. It's going to drive me insane. There, that's a lot better. I know that you can't really tell the difference on camera, but trust me, it's a huge difference in person. I then made some cutouts going across my piece. This one over here on the left measures 7 inches tall by 3 inches wide. It is 6 inches from the bottom and 4 inches away from this edge. This one measures 12.5 inches tall by 6 inches wide. I did leave about 1/2 inch down at the bottom, and it is 13.5 inches away from this side. And then our last cutout over here on this side measures 7 inches by 7 inches. It is 6 inches from the bottom and 2 inches away from this side. And if you couldn't tell yet, the two smaller ones are going to be our windows and the large one's gonna be our door. Now to trim the sides of my window, I cut a piece of foam board down to 7 inches by 1/2 inch. Next, let's use some contact paper. I'm gonna use this brown wood grain one that I found on Amazon. And we're going to remove the back and place our piece of foam board about 1/2 inch away from the edge. Cut off the extra on the side and roll the 1/2 inch piece onto the back of our 1/2 inch strip. So by now you should have something that looks like this. We are now going to turn it this direction and place it right up against the side of our window. And I'm just gonna turn my piece around here just so you guys can see from the back. You see how the edge of my trim lines up perfectly with the edge of my window? That's what we want. Let's now take the excess contact paper and roll it over the sides onto the back of our wall so that when we flip it back around, it looks like this. I then repeated that process all the way around my window to finish my frame. And then I repeated for my door and my other window. So now that everything's framed, let's start making some doors. Let's start by cutting a piece of foam board down to 3 inches by 12 inches. And we are going to cover this piece, but I'm using black foam board just because it's a lot more forgiving if there's any gaps in the contact paper. Like over there, we have gaps in the contact paper, but you can't see it because I use black foam board underneath. I then made a cutout from the middle of my piece. It measures 11.5 inches by 2 inches, giving me a piece that has a 1/2 inch border going all the way around. Cover it in my brown wood grain contact paper and I roll the insides of my cutout, but I didn't roll the outsides. Cut a piece of plexiglass down to size to fit in the back of our cutout. Repeat to make a second piece using all the same steps and measurements as we used to make this piece, but we are actually going to flip this one this way and place it in the back of our door, making sure that your edges line up. Cut some 1/2 inch strips of my brown wood grain contact paper and I'm going to use this to trim the sides and cover up that black foam board. And I do it all the way around my piece. Add some little door handles that I found at a Hobby Lobby about 6 inches up from the bottom. Let's now take a pin and go to the opposite side of where we place the door handle, the top corner, and place our pin about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. Use my wire cutters to trim off the head of the pin. Now let's use another pin to make a little hole right up here in the top left-hand corner of our door frame. Again, about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. And to install, all we have to do is insert the pin on top of the door into the hole that we just made in the door frame, if I can find it. Okay, I got it. I had to do it off camera because, you guys, I'm literally blind and I couldn't see because the phone was in my way. But now we're going to move to the bottom of our piece. We're going to use another pin and go through the back foam board. As you can see, we have the front one and the back one. We're going to go through the back one all the way through so that your door is able to swing open like this, and then you can take your wire cutters and just go in and trim off this excess. And then of course this is going to be really sharp and pointy, so just take your wire cutters and push it all the way in. I repeated for the other side to give us double doors that can actually open and close. You guys, this is so friggin' cute. I'm obsessed. Let's now add in some plexiglass behind our windows. I also have this open and close sign that I printed off of the computer. So I add some clear tape over it, cut it out and stick it to a piece of foam board, and I put the open sign on one side and the closed sign on the other. Trim my sides with gold craft paper. Add some tiny little cup hooks to the top. Add a little chain, and now we have a little sign that we can hang on the door so the dolls know when we're open. We're actually gonna leave it on closed for right now, just in case any dolls show up and try to cause any drama, because we are still under construction. And I think with that, our back wall is complete. Now for our left wall, I cut a piece of foam board down to 22 inches by 16 inches, and I covered it in the same contact paper as we did the back wall. And this one's gonna go right over here on this side. I then made a second wall that measures 16 inches by 22 inches, but as you can see, this one I covered in like a moss green contact paper that I found on Amazon. And we're gonna put this one over here on this side. And then I was thinking, remember how I said earlier that she's gonna set this up in a shelf? Well, we have all of these windows and doors. We don't want her to see the back of the shelf through the windows and doors. So I printed out a few backgrounds and I stuck them onto pieces of foam board that you could place behind her door and windows to make it look like there's an entire town out there with sidewalks and streets and other stores. So completed room with measurements 37, 22, and 16. Check. So now that we have our floor and all of our walls down, let's start making some furniture. Let's start with a huge shelving unit with a countertop for over there on that wall. Let's start with a piece that measures 17 inches by 5.5 inches and a second piece that measures 2 inches by 5 inches. And as you can see, I covered this side in my brown wood grain contact paper. And I don't know why that came out like that. But I'm gonna place them together like this. Repeat for the other side. Place another covered piece that measures 17 inches by 5.5 inches right over the top. Okay, I guess that really wasn't the top. That's actually the side. This is the top. It measures 3 inches by 18 inches, and I place this one on the top, making sure that it lines up with the back. The back is a piece that is obviously not covered so that we have an overhang in the front. And I know she said not too much gold, but I'm gonna use a little bit just to trim my edges. I hope I didn't go too overboard. I then cut 6 pieces of foam board. They all measure 2 inches by 4 inches. And as you can see, I covered them all the way around in my brown contact paper. And we are going to start placing them on our piece like this. Oh my God, this piece wants to go flying. We're going to place them like this, going across our piece to create some cupboard doors. Let's now use some tacks that I found at my local dollar store to create some door handles like this. And just a rule of thumb when you're installing cupboard handles onto cupboard doors, if you're working on lower cabinets like these, the door handles always go on the top or in the middle, and vice versa. If these were overhead cabinets, the door handles would go at the bottom or in the middle. I know that should go without saying, but you guys, honestly, when I first started crafting, I didn't know that. So if I was dumb enough not to know that, I'm sure there's somebody else out there who was dumb enough not to know that. But now that we have our finished countertop, we're gonna place it over here on this wall. And now we can start making the shelves that go on the top. Let's start with a piece of foam board that measures 5 inches by 8 inches and another piece that measures 1 3/4 inches by 8 inches. And this piece I cover on both sides, and I'm gonna place them together like this. I then drew a couple lines on my piece. This one measures 2.5 inches up from the bottom, and this one is 5 inches up from the bottom. Cut and cover 2 pieces that measure 1.5 inches by 5 inches, and I cover them on both sides and not roll. Cover one of the sides in gold craft paper, and I'm going to place one of them right here on this line and the second one over here on this line. Add another 2 by 8 inch piece. Again, this one's covered on both sides on this side. Trim my raw edges in gold craft paper. Repeat to make a second one, and we are going to place them on top of our countertop on either side. And for the top, I cut a piece that measures 18 inches by 3 inches, covered on both sides. And then this side is covered with my gold contact paper, and I'm going to place this right over here like this. I then printed off a vegan menu with plant-based dishes, cut it out and stick it to a piece of foam board, trimmed it in gold craft paper, and I added these little gold beads on the corners so that when I place it on the wall, hopefully it looks like it's bolted to the wall. See, doesn't it look like it was bolted to the wall? Now let's take a look at our to-do list. As you can see, we already have one thing checked off. I think next, let's start working on the display cases. Let's start by cutting a piece of foam board down to 3 inches by 10 inches. And I'm gonna use my pencil to start sketching out a curve from this side going across to about here. Cut on the line that we drew to remove that piece and use some sandpaper to round out the edges. Cover both sides of it in my brown contact paper. This is gonna be the side of our display case. So now for the front, I cut another piece that measures 5 inches by 5 inches, and this side's only covered on one side because no one's gonna see the back, but we're gonna place them together like this. Repeat with another 5 by 5 inch piece for the back of our display case, and we're gonna place this right over here. This piece measures 3 inches by 5 inches, and I'm gonna place it right up here. Add a second side piece that's curved on the top and covered on both sides on the other side. Add a 1/2 inch by 5 inch strip that's covered on both sides and rolled on one. I'm gonna take the roll side and face it downward and place it right here in the middle in between these two pieces. I found this doll the other day at Ross. She was only $13. So she needs to be unboxed because we need this clear packaging. And the reason why we're using clear packaging is because we're gonna place it in the front like this and roll it around the top. And if we use plexiglass, it would have just snapped in half. I also used some straight pins to secure the plastic at the bottom and then a few at the top. Because it is curved, the plastic doesn't want to shape that way and stay that way, so it'll probably pop off if you don't put the straight pins. I, of course, then had to trim it in gold craft paper all the way around my edges. And you guys, technically she said go easy on the gold molding, and gold paper isn't gold molding, so I think I'm okay. I then cut 2 strips that measure 3 inches by a little bit over 1/4 inch, and I covered them all the way around in gold craft paper. And we're gonna place the first one over here on this side on the inside about 1.5 inches up from the bottom. And the second one, we're gonna place it over here on this side, again about 1.5 inches up from the bottom. Cut a piece of plexiglass down to 3 inches by 5 inches, and we're gonna place it on top of those 1/4 inch strips that we just placed in there to create a little shelf. I also made this little sign that says 100% plant-based, delicious treats, no dairy, no eggs, no compromises, and we're gonna place this right down here. But I don't really like the fact that we can see the pins poking through the paper like that. So let's add some tiny little gold beads right over them to cover up our pin heads, add some detail, and make it look like we have some bolts holding our piece together. I then repeated to make a second one, but this one says fresh made daily, made with wholesome plant-based ingredients. And we are gonna place one right here and the other one over here. Now let's make a countertop for the middle so that we have a place to put the cash register. Let's start by cutting a piece of foam board down to 6 inches by 6 inches. And as you can see, I made a cutout from the middle. It measures 3 inches by 4 inches. Trim the edges of the cutout in gold craft paper. And we're gonna fill this opening with these wooden sticks that I found in my local dollar store. We use this method in our last video, our honeymoon video. This video right here, if you haven't seen that yet, please check it out. It's pretty good. But we're gonna place it right in the back of our opening, making sure that we don't leave any spaces. I did it going all the way across my piece, and I just feel like this is so the vibe that we're going for, like very earthy and natural, but still glamorous. Next, let's add a 2 by 6 inch piece on this side, another 2 by 6 inch piece for this side, and a 3 by 6 inch piece on the top, making sure that the back of it is flush with this side so that we get the overhang in the front. Okay, my phone died, so I kept working while I was charging, and I trimmed all of my edges in gold craft paper. I also added some moss and a few little flowers to kind of tie in our signs that we have going on back there. See how there's greenery in the corners? I also added a few of our gold bolts, and I also made this cute little order here sign that I want to place right here in the middle. We are going to use poster putty to put this on just in case she wants to use this piece in a different room in the future. And as I said earlier, this piece is for right here in the middle. Look at how adorable this looks. I am obsessed. Now let's make the cash register. I honestly don't know what I'm doing here. But I cut a piece down to 2.5 by 2 inches, and as you can see, I covered it in this brown wood grain contact paper, and I cut the sides at a 45-degree angle along the 2.5 inch side. My next piece measures 3/4 inches by 2.5 inches, and again covered in my brown wood grain contact paper, and I rolled both of the 3/4 inch sides, and I'm going to place both of these pieces together like this. Let's now place my piece onto a scrap piece of foam board, making sure that this corner right here and this corner right here line up on the edges of my foam board. And now I'm gonna go in with my pencil and just trace on the back of it. Cut it out and use it to trace and make another one. Cover them in my brown wood grain contact paper, and we're gonna place one of them on this side and the second one, oops. The second one on the other side. Cut 2 pieces of foam board that measure 2.5 inches by 3 inches, and I covered them in my brown wood grain contact paper, and I'm going to stick them together back to back and place the first piece that we made right up against it, making sure that our corners at the bottom are flush. Trimmed all of my edges in gold craft paper, and I printed out 2 total screens, and as you can see, I laminated them with some tape, and we're going to place one of them up here so the doll that's ringing up can see the total, and then we're going to place one back here so the doll that's being rung up can see the total. I also printed out some cash register buttons that we can place right here. Add a gold map pin. Oh, that one literally fell and disappeared into thin air. So here's a second one. We're gonna use this right down here to create a drawer handle. And to finish it off, I added a few of my gold beads right around the sides. And you guys, this came out so good, especially for someone who said like literally a few minutes ago that they didn't know what they were doing. I am beyond happy with how this came out actually. Now let's see what it looks like on the counter. Perfect. So the area with the pastry displays, check. Next on our list is the industrial refrigerator, and I was thinking that we can put it right over there in the corner. Well, that's not a corner, but over there against the wall. Let's start with a piece that measures 5.5 inches by 13 inches and a second piece that measures 2.25 inches by 13 inches. This one I cover one side of it in a black shiny contact paper, and I'm gonna place them together like this. A 5.5 by 2 inch piece down at the bottom in the corner. I then drew a line about 3.5 inches up from the bottom, and I cut a second 2 by 5.5 inch piece, and we're gonna place that right on the line. For the side, I cut another 2.25 by 13 inch piece, and I cover it in my black contact paper, and I turn it this way and I apply it to the side. For the top, let's add a piece that measures 2.25 by 6 inches, and again, this one's covered with my black contact paper on the top, but the inside is white, and we're gonna place it like this. Trim our edges in gold craft paper. Add a 3.75 by 6 inch piece covered in my gold craft paper all the way around to the front right down here. A 1 by 6 inch piece covered all the way around in gold craft paper to the top. For the shelves, I cut some 1/4 inch strips of foam board down to 2 inches, and I placed them every 1.25 inches going up the side. And of course, I repeated for the other side. Cut pieces of plexiglass down to 2 inches by 5.5 inches, and we're going to place them over those 1/4 inch strips just like we did for the display cases. I ended up getting 3 shelves with the amount of space that I had to work with. Now let's make the doors. She did specify that she wanted the doors in the refrigerator to be working doors. So I cut a piece of plexiglass down to 8.25 inches by 3 inches and a black strip of foam board down to 1/4 inch by 3 inches. And we're gonna place this right down here. Repeat for the top. This piece measures 1/4 inch by 7.75, and I place it on this side. Repeat for this side. And then of course, repeat all of this on the other side. Use 1/2 inch strips of black craft paper to trim the sides. Cut a 1/4 inch strip down to 3 inches and cover it all the way around in my gold craft paper and place it right on the side in the middle to create a door handle. Repeat to make another one. I then install them using the same method as we used for the front doors. I place my pins on the corner of this piece down here and then through this piece. And for the top, I place it through this corner and then through the top piece, giving me an industrial fridge with actual working doors. You guys, this is so cute. I literally want to keep it for myself. I also made this little sign. It says plant-powered vegan drinks. I added a little bit of poster putty to the back, and I'm gonna place it right down here so that the dolls know where to pick up their drinks after they're done ordering at the cash register. You guys, this is so adorable. And again, I did use the poster putty just in case she decides to use this fridge for something else. So industrial refrigerator with working doors, check. Now let's make some seating. I wanna make a little booth for over there in the corner. Yes, that's a real corner. Let's start by cutting a piece of foam board down to 3.5 inches by 6 inches. And as you can see, I made a cutout from one of the corners. The cutout measures 3 inches by 2.5 inches. Our cutout is just gonna be scrap, but for the other piece, I covered it in my brown wood grain contact paper. And I repeated to make a second one. Cut another piece that measures 6 inches by 6 inches, and we are gonna place these two pieces together like this. My next piece measures 3 inches by 6 inches, and we're gonna place this one down here in the front. Add in the second piece that we made with the cutout on the other side. For the top, I cut a piece that measures 1 inch by 6.5 inches, and I cover this piece in gold craft paper, and I place it right up here. Trim it in gold craft paper to cover up my edges. For the seats, let's cut a piece that measures 2.5 by 6.5. Cover it in the fabric of your choice. I chose this emerald green suede, and I'm gonna place it right here to create a seat. I also covered this piece in my green suede. It measures 2 3/4 by 6.5, and I placed this one right back here to create the backrest. I then repeated to make another one, but this one I finished the back because the one with the unfinished back I'm gonna place against the wall so no one's gonna see it. And then this one I'm gonna place over here right next to the fridge. Now let's make a table. For the table top, I cut a piece that measures 4.5 by 6.5, and I covered it in this cream and gold contact paper that I found on Amazon. I also trimmed the sides in gold craft paper. For the base of our table, I cut a piece of foam board down to 2 3/4 by 2 3/4 and a wooden dowel down to about 5 inches, and I place it in the middle. Paint it gold, and before I painted it gold, I actually covered the sides of it in my gold craft paper just so that the spray paint wouldn't melt through my foam board. And now I can place our tabletop right on the top in the middle. And just like that, we have our little table that we can place right in the middle to create a cute little cozy booth for our vegan restaurant. I then repeated to make 2 more, but the tops of these are a little bit smaller. They measure 4 inches by 5 inches, and I was thinking that we can place one here. One here and one right over here. Now let's make some chairs for some extra seating. I cut a 1/4 inch wooden dowel down to 6 inches and a second piece down to 2 inches, and I'm gonna place the 2-inch piece on the side of the 6-inch piece about 3 inches up from the bottom. This piece is a round wooden dowel, but it also measures 2 inches, and we're gonna place this one 1 inch up from the bottom. Add another 6-inch piece on the other side, turn our piece this way, and now we're gonna add another 2-inch square wooden dowel 3 inches up so that it lines up with this piece over here on this side. Another 2-inch circular wooden dowel right here. Repeat for the other side. Cut a piece of our 1/4 inch wooden dowel down to 3 inches and another piece down to 2 inches and place them together like this. Add a 2-inch round wooden dowel 1 inch up from the bottom, another 3-inch piece on this side, and place them together like this. I then spray painted it gold so that it matched the rest of our vegan restaurant. And you guys, we are in the middle of a massive heat wave here in Los Angeles. So every time I would spray this and leave it outside to dry, when I would go back to check on it, it would literally just be on the floor in pieces. Because the heat is so much, it is literally melting the glue and causing it to fall apart. So I ended up using crazy glue to hold it together, and that worked. For our backrest, let's cut a piece of foam board down to 2 3/4 inches by 2 inches. And I cover one side of it in our wood grain contact paper. This is gonna be the back of our backrest. Let's now flip it over and use the same fabric as we used to cover the booth to cover the front of our backrest, making sure to roll the sides of my fabric onto the sides of my foam board. And now we can place it onto the back of our chair to create our backrest. I then repeated to make another piece for the seat, but this piece measures 2 3/4 inches by 2 3/4 inches, and we're gonna place this right here. Just kidding. This piece measures 2.5 inches by 2 3/4 inches. As I said, we're in the middle of a massive heat wave, and I can't film with the air conditioning on because it's just gonna be too loud. So I'm currently in actual hell while making this project. And it's definitely causing me to literally not think straight. It is 97 degrees in my craft room right now. Literal hell. But the show must go on, so I added some of my gold beads to the front of the backrest to create some detail, and I also added some to the back. I then repeated to make 2 more, or 3 more. Oh my god, you guys, this heat is literally killing me. And I also added some of the gold beads to the backrest in the booth so it matches our chairs. Oh my god! Okay, I am 1 inch away from giving up. Thank God we're almost done. The only thing that we really have left to do is that wall over there. It's a little bit bare. So I was thinking that we can make a little bookshelf that goes across that wall so the dolls can read while they're eating their vegan dishes. I don't know. I feel like reading and vegans just go hand in hand. Let's start by cutting a piece of foam board down to 4 inches by 9.5 inches, and this piece measures 2.25 inches by 4 inches. And as you can see, I covered both sides in my brown wood grain contact paper, and I rolled one of the sides, and we're gonna place it right over here on the side like this. My next piece measures 9.5 by 2 inches, and again, it is rolled on the side, and we're gonna place this one right down here. I then drew a line going across my piece. You can't really see it because it's very faint. I used pencil, but it's 2 inches down from the top. And I'm gonna place this piece that measures 1.75 by 3 inches right on that line over here in the corner. This piece measures 3.75 by 2 inches, and I only covered one side of this piece, but I'm gonna place the side that we covered right against this piece that we just put in. Let's now repeat all of the same steps for the other side. Cut a piece down to 3.5 inches by 4 inches, made a cutout from the middle. It measures 2.5 by 2 inches, and I covered my edges in gold craft paper. Add some of my round wooden dowels to the back, add it to the front of my piece in the middle. And our last piece of foam board measures 2.75 inches by 11 inches, and I covered this piece all the way around, including rolling all of my sides, and we're gonna place this one on the top. I also have these little wooden cones that I found at my local dollar store. So I added them to the bottom to create some legs and add some height to our piece. And you guys, now we have the cutest little bookshelf for over here on this wall. I also have this collage of wall art printables, and they all say really cute things. Like this one says, "Eat plants, feel alive. Plants are our future." And I love this one, "Today's choices, tomorrow's world." So I cut them out and I stuck them to pieces of foam board, and I'm gonna use coffee stirrers to frame them. I ended up framing all of them. I then placed them on the wall above our bookshelf using poster putty so she can rearrange them if she wants. But I thought this configuration looked pretty good. I also made this little sign. It's a chalkboard that says, "Eat plants, feel amazing," and then there's a list of things that they sell at this vegan restaurant. And I was thinking it would go perfect right over here in between the door and the window. Now we pretty much did everything on our to-do list except for the inside-outside feel. And you guys know that I usually don't put ceilings on my sets just because it blocks off the light. But since this set is going into a shelf, there's gonna be a ceiling above it anyways. So I was thinking, what if we use this greenery that I found at my local dollar store and add it to the ceiling to create a ceiling of vines? So I spliced some foam board together to measure 37 by 22, and I covered the entire thing in greenery. And now I can just place it on the top to really bring in that indoor-outdoor vibe. And I am definitely getting that indoor-outdoor vibe. I am obsessed. Oh, I almost forgot. I also have these tiny little printable plant-based menus. So I cut them out and I laminated them with some tape, and I also stuck them on 2 gold pieces of craft paper just to make them a little bit more sturdy. And I made quite a few of them. So now I think the time has finally come for me to say that I'm gonna go stage this entire thing, make it a lot more indoor-outdoor feeling, and I'll be right back with the finished product. I added some lights to the ceiling and the refrigerator back there, and this is what I got. right, you guys, we did it. I am obsessed and I survived the heat wave. Well, barely, but I'm alive. I think my favorite part of the entire finished scene Why is my light blinking? Do you guys see that? No, you can't see it. I have too many lights on. The dining room light is going like this. Poltergeist. That is so freaky, you guys. Okay, I should go turn it off. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Now, what was I saying before I was rudely interrupted by our ghost over here? Hopefully she's a friendly ghost. My favorite part of this entire video was definitely the ceiling. I am obsessed with the greenery and the flowers and the lights. Chef's kiss, like it was just absolute perfection. And then all of those plants everywhere literally brought in the indoor-outdoor feel that she was asking for. So I really hope that she loves it just as much as I do, or else I'm probably gonna die. No, I'm totally kidding, but I think she's gonna love it because we were pretty much able to achieve everything that she asked for. I really like this idea though of making a doll room the size of a shelf so that I can actually display it after I'm done filming. Because as of right now, I literally have to pack everything up and just store it in cupboards. What was that? You guys, this ghost. But I definitely am gonna have to invest in some larger shelves because right now my shelves are only about 11 inches deep, which I mean, you can't really make. I mean, you can, but it's not gonna be as good as like the size of shelf that she had. Like she has a 22-inch deep shelf by 37. It's massive. But definitely let me know down in the comments if that's something that you guys are interested in seeing in the future. Also, please let me know what was your favorite thing that we built today and what should we build next week? Well, not next week, the week after next week, because next week we're doing our summer launch. So make sure to set your clocks because my sister and I are dropping our summer fashion packs next Saturday at 8 a.m. Shut up. That's Saturday, July 25th, 2026. Also, my sister and I are going to be attending the Sherry's Doll Show in Buena Park, California tomorrow. So if you see us there, come over and say hi. We would love to meet you guys. But that's it for this week's video, you guys. If you guys like this video, please give it a huge thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.